Hello everyone and welcome back. It's been about a week or so since last time I talked to you and I told you it's Halloween season. So I was trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do this year, and this last week it finally did hit me exactly what to do. Because I feel that going into some of these bigger horror franchises every year, it takes forever to get anywhere with them, and it's also a very long, tedious road to try and review, say, 8 movies with only 4 weeks to do anything with them. And to be honest, I've got a lot of missing gaps now due to the fact that YouTube's an asshole. So I figure the best way to do this, and the safest way without any legal issues, is to do them all in huge groups together and talk about the franchise as a whole and the individual movies they're in very quickly. So if that's being said, time to get the nerdy specs on. We're going to be talking Halloween this week. Next week will be Friday the 13th, and then our big finale before Halloween will be a Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I will add that all of these franchises are ones I've been fan of at the very least since I was 17, and at the most recent since about 2007, 2008, when I first entered into them, and I have collected every movie, except for maybe 1 or 2 of all 3 of these franchises. So with that being said, Halloween time. So, to kick off the franchise, it was Halloween 1 and 2, written, directed, and produced by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. The original was John Carpenter's, I believe, second official movie, and the one that would further cement him permanently as being a director to look out for, and a guy to keep an eye on. But also, he wrote the stories and would produce the music for almost all of his movies up until about the mid-80s till early 90s. Mostly depending upon which companies would actually let him make his own music or not. The first 2 movies are fairly solid movies. The first movie being the introduction to Michael Myers, Jamie Lee Curtis's character Laurie, and then the second movie, while a little on the cheap side slightly, because a good half of the movie or more is spent in literally one location in a hospital. All they had to do was loan out a wing and you got your movie made. But I would add that a majority of the script was written by John Carpenter while he was drinking the entire time, believing that, and he thought in fact that he was doing nothing new and was already tired and burning out of the franchise. Despite all the writing issues John Carpenter had with making this sequel, it turned out relatively well and garnered a little less than the previous movie, but still garnered enough to keep interest going for a franchise. As a matter of fact, looking at the numbers really quick here, it didn't go down by half, but it did go down considerably, all considered. But it wouldn't make as little as Halloween 3. Part 3 was written and directed, according to this, by Tommy, aka Thomas Lee Wallace. He was originally the editor for both Halloween and John Carpenter's The Fog. And he was also approached originally to direct Halloween 2, which was then later given off to Rick Rosenthal, who still did an excellent job of trying to mimic John Carpenter's style. The other credits I can see off the top here for Tommy Lee Wallace is that he was also involved with directing Friday Night Part 2, which I hear is good, It, which actually is probably one of the better Stephen King productions, although a little bit on the silly side. But he was also involved with the 80s Twilight Zone series, Max Headroom, Baywatch, and several other short-lived TV series or movies that I honestly have never seen before. Apparently he also worked on a 90s Flipper. He was also nominated for Best Effects as a Saturn Award for The Fog, and he also won a ACE Award for writing the movie or miniseries of El Diablo with John Carpenter. Tommy Lee Wallace also did acting in The Fog and also in Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, the movie that he actually directed. A bit of nepotism, I think. But needless to say, the Halloween 3 was probably the poorest reaction that they had gotten out of the franchise to that point. And to give you some numbers to show just how poor of a reaction it was, we went from Halloween 2, which garnered $25,000, and we went to Halloween 3, which only got $14,000. Yikes. Essentially what happened between Halloween 3 and Halloween 4, after the enormous letdown that Halloween 3 was, is that it was decided that it was no longer going to be the Night Gallery / Twilight Zone franchise that John Carpenter wanted to turn it into after number 2, because he was tired of trying to write for Michael Myers again. Essentially, they wanted to do something new with every Halloween, maybe do 2 of them in a row for one story, but for sure do something different at least every other time, and make it sort of a different story franchise based around the season of Halloween, which in of itself is not a bad idea. However, the ideas behind number 3 are so outlandish and somewhat silly that the audience just honestly didn't catch on, and they wanted more Michael Myers. That was apparently the #1 reaction, more Michael Myers. So Mustafa Akkad, the man who would be behind the production of all Halloweens, starting with 4 and ending with his death just before the remake, was the one who pushed the franchise to continue and to make its own way through. He would handpick the directors, he would handpick the stories, he would make sure that the quality was upkept as best as he could, although there would be some minor fringe problems here and there. So, starting with number 4, we actually had another boost in the monetary raisings of the franchise, going from the tiny, pitiful amount of $14,000 up to $17,000, which was a nice little rebound, especially considering that this is the last one that we know of the first one that we know of a budget for outside the original Halloween. This one only took $5,000 to make. Well, actually, I missay. It wasn't 14,000, it was 14 million, and went back up to 17 million on a budget of 5 million. That's a nice little... That's 3 times the amount of money that you spent on it, essentially. And a little extra. It did reasonably well with that kind of budget. And the next movie would hold the same kind of budget, but sadly would also trickle back down, and I'm not entirely sure why. Number 4 and number 5 were heavy pet projects by Akkad, and he would pick different directors to run them, but they ran with the particular storyline that after number 2, Laurie Strode apparently had a fling with one of the few other survivors from Halloween 2, and they had a child, but then had to run away and go under protective services to keep Michael from finding them. However, this meant abandoning her daughter, who is named Jamie, named after the actual actress Jamie Lee Curtis, and that Jamie would be left behind in Haddonfield and would be then adopted by another family, and still remain in Haddonfield, which is Michael's preferred stomping grounds, so you're just literally feeding the troll. But I will say, for the fact that you actually made a child a main actor for 2 movies, and the child actor did not become a pain, but actually was one of the better actors in said movies, which is not a feat you can say about every single horror movie. It is a testament in of itself of how well they were writing this, and how good of quality, despite being relatively unknowns, that they picked for actors. I would also add that from Halloween 1 to 2, and then from Halloween 4, all the way until Halloween 6, Curse of Michael Myers, that Donald Pleasence was in all of these movies except for 3. Unless you count maybe a TV cameo of Loomis, played by Donald Pleasence in number 3, because yes, the original Halloween for some reason was played on TVs in Halloween 3. But at the end of so we introduced the character number 4 of Jamie, and then we end her story, supposedly number 5. The only thing we get is vagaries of Michael's cell being open, a man in black who apparently helped free Michael, and that Jamie walks into the same prison, and apparently, according to the beginning of the next movie, was never seen from again. What we get then in number 6 is Curse of Michael Myers. And it was a curse, alright. Everything in this production just went completely batshit. The problem was that they actually had a fairly solid ending at the very least going for the movie, but the problem is that poor Donald Pleasence, who for the last time would play Loomis, died a couple months before the movie itself was released. Hence the reason why his name is in the opening credits as a memory to. They originally were planning that he would become the new Man Black, and that they were going to explain a lot of things that have been going on in the franchise in number 6 here. They were going to explain the Man in Black, who was apparently part of a cult that made Michael into the mass-murdering psychopath that he was, and that it's actually a supernatural curse that's been placed upon him to kill his own family. Hence the reason why he's been doing this for 6 movies. However, while trying to explain this, some people that were apparently heads of the company, the movie company behind it, decided that maybe it was going a little too far, and then with the death of Donald Pleasence, they decided to actually kill off his character off-screen, no less, at the end of the movie. Apparently recycling the same scream as when he was being possessed to become the new Black Man. Instead, he's getting killed by Michael, supposedly. While the only thing we see during the scream is Michael's mask on the floor. Woohoo. But also they decided to cut back on the mentions of the fact that this was indeed Jamie again, and that this was her daughter. She had given birth to a new child, and this was obvious, but we thought it was like some random member of the cult or something that had abducted her. Instead, it turns out that Michael is the father of the child with his own niece. Ew. Obviously, that wasn't going to go very far without people going, no. Obviously not. That was some creepy-ass shit that does not need to be part of the franchise. Thank you very much for at least eliminating that out of the theatrical cut of the movie. But needless to say, it's kind of a hodgepodge mess. Nothing was actually officially completed, and they had to hurry it out the door while trying to completely re-alter the ending. So, Curse of Michael Myers is kind of a hot mess, and yet somehow it did better than The Revenge of Michael Myers by about 4 million, a little less than, at least 3.5 million, give it that much. But then the franchise would sit there for a couple of years. They just really didn't know what to do with it anymore. When the 20th anniversary rolled around, it was actually the 19th anniversary, and Jamie Lee Curtis herself had just realized, you know what? It's about time for an important anniversary for the franchise. I haven't been contacted. Is anyone else working on something for this franchise right now? And so she got in touch with the movie company that was trying to make plans for another Halloween, and because of her involvement, they managed to actually kickstart Halloween H2O and just highlight the sucker right into infinity. Just got all the right people at the right time in the right place and make this thing happen. Because of Jamie Lee Curtis's involvement behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera, reprising her role as Laurie. And so, Laurie, still hiding away for all these years, comes back to the forefront as Michael hunts her down in her now assumed role as a teacher in a different county, trying to hide the horrible past of Halloweens that have been for her. And with this, Michael, still cursed to hunt down his sister, manages to find her once more. And in doing so, the shenanigans begin again. Yeah, definitely one of the best looking Michael Myers up to this point since number 2, because they were trying to do little different things with all the Michaels, but they just couldn't quite hit the right mark. H2O, number 7, managed to make the character iconic again. I will say that if there's any one thing that 6 also did well, is try and hit towards how iconic and how to precisely make the character look and feel. If nothing else, 6 nailed it, and 7 nailed it further and made it part of the popular culture for Michael. They would continue to reuse this particular look for Resurrection, which sadly was a lackluster film that tried to kill off Jamie Lee Curtis's character at the very beginning within the first 10 minutes, despite the fact that she was in the trailers for this movie as being a major character. Talk about lies. And that's probably the biggest downfall of Resurrection, outside of the fact that we also had a rapper decide to join the crew and have him fist fight Michael Myers. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. He wouldn't have survived 10 seconds, much less the entire 30 seconds that he apparently lasted on screen with Michael in that fight. Resurrection was obviously a bit of a flop. Halloween H2O boost the amount of money that the Halloween franchise can make in a single movie above any of the previous movies, managing to reach $55 million on a budget of only 17. And then we have the reboot franchise, and I'll take off my glasses for this. I've seen the 2009 Halloween 2 only once, and I actually do own the first remake. The first remake is alright. However, they throw in a lot of psychological mommy issues and so forth, which really just kind of feeds off as bullshit. It really feels like they just took some ideas from other slasher heroes like Jason and tried to mesh them into our Michael Myers, to which the entire fan base kind of sat there screaming, "Stop it, stop mixing your other Jasons with your Michaels. This is the reason why people are having an issue trying to keep these straight even if they're not fans." And obviously the Rob Zombie didn't take any lessons from that and continued to mess with the formula even more, even having Michael literally yell "die" at the end of Halloween 2. Michael's supposed to be a completely silent killer. I can understand Jason with his heavy breathing, because that's the thing that Kane Hodder added to the character, and it's his own personal touch. But Michael is the consummate, slow-walking, I will always get you no matter what you try doing, non-vocal killer. And actually, in matter of fact, in the first movie even, he did have some heavy breathing, so that could be technically that, and maybe some slight grunts when he gets shot would be the most sounds you'd hear on Michael. And that is, for the most part, what all you do hear on adult Michael until Halloween 2 2009. So, where's the franchise now? Since 2009, obviously Halloween 2 was actually a bit of a flop, and going back to the numbers again, you had Halloween H2O, which made $55 million, Resurrection, which only made $30 million, you have the remake, which managed to hit $58 million, which is actually pretty good, and actually the high point for how much this franchise can make out of only a $15 million budget. But then you drop down to $33 million with number 2. It took like almost a complete half, maybe even a little less than, compared to the first movie, which obviously shows that people were no longer interested. This was not the direction to take Michael in. As for where the franchise is now, Rob Zombie was, for the longest time, threatening that he was going to be making a Halloween 3 or handing off the ideas for a Halloween 3 to somebody else, but no one has dared to pick up that torch. What I have found out, however, and you can even go to Wikipedia to find out about this, is that talks have been on again since about June of 2011, with more news coming in last year in 2015. The most recent news we have heard is on May 23rd, of this year, 2016. To which I quote from Wikipedia, it was announced that Miramax and Blumhouse Productions were developing a new Halloween film, in which they co-financed, and John Carpenter is set to help produce the project and act as creative consultant. John Carpenter stated, 38 years after the original Halloween, I'm going to help to try and make the 10th sequel the scariest of them all. John Carpenter, if there's any one person I have more faith in than Jamie Lee Curtis to help make a good movie happen, it's you, sir. While you have given your permission, you have been also a bit lax on making movies. I would love to see you making movies again, or at least being active somehow behind the camera. I would think that this would be a great way for you to become very active again. I'd love to see some of your new ideas. I would love to actually see a real sequel after Halloween H2O. Resurrection can just go die in a pyre. It's not even that noteworthy of a movie anyways. Literally, it's a bunch of dumb teens in the early days of the internet walk into Michael Myers' house and film everything. Ooh, so spooky! And then Michael Myers shows up, obviously pissed off, and kills everybody. I mean, what kind of a pointless plot was that? And it was a waste of Jamie Lee Curtis's character at the very beginning of the movie. Come back, Nixnay, Resurrection, bring back Jamie Lee Curtis, at least as a cameo if nothing else. And give us some good old wholesome Michael. We are ready. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my review and feelings of the Halloween franchise. I will see you all next week for Friday the 13th. See you all then.
What's the boogeyman?
It's time, Michael.
Sweet Jiminy Christmas.